Good morning, everyone. It's Dr. Antonio here at Still Point Ayurveda in Philadelphia, and I'm coming live to you with a continuation on the talk of health and diseases. The last talk was talking about the Tridoshaha, the Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, and how they can be the sources of life and foundations of longevity and health and well-being, as well as the constituents for disease, pathology, and death and destruction. So easy thinking this morning. And so I'd like to continue with this in the direction of understanding causes of health and disease per Ashtanga Hridayam again, Sutrasthana 1, Shloka 19, where Bhagavad says that Karartha Karmanam Yoga Hina Mityati Matrakaha Samyag Yogascha Vinyayo Roga Karanam. So I'm going to sort of break it down. Roga. Roga is disease. Arogya is free from disease or disease-free state or health. Karanam, causes. And Kalartha Karmanam Yogo. So Kala is about times or seasons and things like that, time of life, but also seasons as far as the year is concerned, for different seasons. Artha, so the sort of objects and the affinity towards the senses. Karmanam, so the actions, daily actions, practices, behaviors, and the combination of understanding this. Hina mityati. Hina is sort of like the improper or poor use of, or mitya. Mitya is improper, inappropriateness. And ati is excess. So we have either not enough or improper or too much. And so combining this knowledge, knowing that the samyag yogascha vinyayo, which is the proper use of the senses and appropriateness to adapting to the seasonal changes and daily practices and things like that, are the causes of health. So the causes of ill health would be the improper use of the five senses. So what are we looking at? What are we listening to? What are we tasting? What are we hearing? What are we touching? The five senses are the tools in which consciousness or a deeper level of intelligence uses to understand the world. It's the tentacles from that level of consciousness into the world as a sort of three-dimensional model and understanding how to accumulate the information, interpret it based on the five senses. Five senses are essential. And so if they're being improperly used, overused or underused, so we're not looking at the right things, or we're looking at things poorly, or we're straining the senses to whatever capacity, watching too much TV, watching news that is talking about death and destruction, and listening to politics first thing in the morning and wars first thing in the morning. This is inappropriate exposure of the senses to consciousness and interpreting the world, setting the tone and intention for the day. If we're exercising too much, causing a sense of ati sweda, which would be like too much sweating, and depletion can occur, and this can contribute towards many conditions like skin issues and insomnia, constipation, anxiety. It's a provocation thereof when there is excess use. Underuse, which would be someone that doesn't really engage in any physical activities, using walking as a baseline minimal, which is better than not doing any walking. But again, we're looking at this from a spectrum. So not moving the body properly and regularly, and improperly. So if we're doing too much routines, too much intensity, too much on the go, missing lunch for that yoga class or that gym exercise, this is improper. What are we watching? Again, back to the eyes, what are we watching that's appropriate for the eyes to observe? What are we listening to? So if we're watching the news, we're also hearing the news, and we're hearing the things that might not be the best to start the day with or end the day with. And then we're exposing the senses to these things. What are we smelling? Are we exposed to things in our environment that we're breathing in on a regular basis that have like chemicals that aren't appropriately digestible by the senses and the system, and body will produce symptoms to disprove that. So more natural sense, more natural products, more natural things. I've written actually extensively about the constituents that are required to create pandemics, and not just COVID and things like that, but global pandemics and sort of the state of climate concern. And so I've written about those things in my Health Tidbits of the Month in my website of Still Point Ayurveda. So if you want to peek on that, that's great. But back to here, understanding, what we're tasting. What's the food that we're eating? What's the quality of food that we're putting into our system? What are the fabrics that we're putting on our skin? Not only are we looking at things that might be lovely, but are they made of synthetic fibers that are like nylon or microfibers or, any of these kind of things that are plastic based in origin? It's not appropriate for the skin. Are we not dressing properly for the weather, going into Kala? Kala is the time in the season and things like that. So are we not dressing properly for the season? Are we not eating properly for the season? What are the things that we're exposing ourselves to at the junctions of the transition of the season, which is called Ritu Sandhi in Ayurveda, and even in Chinese medicine, Ritu Sandhi, or the transition of the seasons, the window, is where people tend to get sick because the body is compromised and not transitioning properly. We just keep eating what we're eating 365 days a year, not honoring the season, not honoring our constitution, not understanding our metabolic capacity, and not following and understanding the baseline of the symptoms that are presenting themselves. And so when we think of Kalartha Karmanam Yoga, Hina Mityati Matrakaha, and Samyak Yogascha Vinyayo Roga Karanam, we have an active responsibility in observing our day-to-day lives and seeing what choices we're making to the best of our abilities or to the worst of our abilities that will invite either health or sickness. And a lot of this is based on choice and, of course, circumstances and environmental situations and kind of, things that you're exposed to and thinking of. So in order to rectify these things, we want to reset. And Ayurveda is an amazing system, one of the best systems of medicine in the world, that is designed to fully understand an individual from beginning to end of life, from first breath to last breath and everything in between, from before breath started in his body to before the spark of consciousness that entered into the womb of the female to the last breath when we're letting go of the body. The five senses are shutting down and we take a last breath. And so Ayurveda encompasses this journey of life and death and wants to promote life and longevity, but also accepts that death is part of this adventure that we're on, because without life, there is no death, and without death, there is no life. And so this is the ongoing dance, or the lila of life. And so this is food for thought for today, considering the senses, their exposure, the things that they're gravitating towards, the things that they have addiction towards, because addiction is falling into this component of what the senses are really needing to see over and over again. Of course, this has a biochemical process, but addiction is a whole different paradigm to be discussed probably at a later point within the context of Ayurvedic medicine. So I will leave you with all this greatness to think about and ponder, and I am always open to working with new patients, and my door is never closed, and there's always the right spot for you, just a matter of getting that appointment in and beginning our journey together and seeing what's happening in your life, what's happening in your world, how are you doing today? And until I see you next time, have an amazing day. Namaste. You can private message me for details. You can check out my website at stillpointayurveda.com. And have a blessed day. Namaste.